Hello, everyone.
Hello, Alder Singh. How are you?
I'm good, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Good.
Have a good night, everyone.
Okay. It's 6 o'clock, so I guess we could get started. Good evening, everyone. Board of Alders Notice, New Haven, the City Services and Environmental Policy Committee of the Board of Alders will meet on Thursday, February 4th, 2021 at 6 p.m. via video conference at https://newhavenct.zoom.us/s/92615935302 PWD equal MKCRWDRORZRMRG8VC2Y OMZJPYWIKDZ09. I think these got longer. And by phone at 646-558-8656, webinar ID 92615935302 to hear and act on the following items. For required password, contact public testimony at newhavenct.gov. Item number 1, LM-2021-0044, resolution of the New Haven Board of Alders designating the corner of Francis Hunter Drive and Dixwell Avenue as Bishop Lithenio McClam Corner. Item number 2, LM-2021-0038, resolution of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the city to apply for and accept a grant from the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development in the amount not to exceed $75,000 to support environmental assessment of the property located at 156-158 Humphrey Street. And to hold a workshop to hear the following: Environmental Advisory Council Chair Laura Kahn, 2021 Year of Thinking Green, to discuss environmentally friendly New Year's resolutions and updates affecting New Haven's environmental health. Per order, Honorable Anna M. Festa, Chair, attest Honorable Michael Smart, City Clerk. These items are on file and available in the office of the City Clerk, room 202 at 200 Orange Street, New Haven, Connecticut, 06510. For accessibility related accommodations, please call 203-946-7833V or 203-946-8582 TTY-TDD. Public comment testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. If you wish to present testimony at the meeting, you must register in advance at https://newhavenct.zoom.us/s/92615935302 PWD equal MKCRWDRORZRMRG8VC2Y 0MZJPYWIKDZ09 or by calling 203-946-7934 or emailing public testimony at newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting for the required password. Public can view the meeting at https://newhavenct.us.us/92615935302 MKCRWDR/ORZRMRG8BC2Y0MZJPYWIKDZ09, or listen by phone at 646-558-8656, webinar ID 92615935302. The password to listen by phone only is 423736904. That was a mouthful tonight. Good evening, everyone. At this time, I would like my colleagues to introduce themselves. I am the Chair of City Service and Environmental Policy, Anifesta Ward 10. And if we can start with my Vice Chair, Alder DeCola.
Alder DeCola, Ward 18.
Alder Antunes.
Alder Antunes, Ward 12.
Alder Roth.
Abby Roth, Ward 7.
Alder Winter.
Stephen Winter, Ward 21.
Alder Singh.
Alder Singh, Ward 5.
And is Alder Smith on?
I don't see her.
See her. Okay, great. Thanks, colleagues, for being here. We will begin with the first item, which is the corner naming designation. Who would like to begin? I'd like to recognize that Alder Jeanette Morrison is with us this evening, as well as President Walker Myers and Majority Leader Richard Furlow. Thanks for being with us this evening. We can start with the makers. So I have obviously Alder Morrison, as well as Nakia Dawson Douglas. So if you could state your name and address for the record before you speak, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Who would like to begin?
Alder, do you want me to start? Because
Sure.
I'm just going to say a little bit and then let Nakia take
That's
it.
perfect. So why
Okay.
don't you begin, and then Nakia, if you could follow with your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Jeanette Morrison, 130 Winchester Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut. Thank you, Madam Chair, and CSEP Committee for this opportunity to come before you in regards to this beloved corner naming. Bishop McClam has been a staple in the Dixville community that I know of since 2000. Bishop McClam and his family decided to open a funeral home in the Dixville community because that was something that was missing. My mother always has a saying that you don't argue or fuss or complain and stay. You argue, fuss, complain, and be on your way. And being on your way can be establishing what it is that you know that is missing within the community. And we used to have a few funeral homes on Dixville, but as in the 90s, those funeral homes started to close up. So in 2000, Bishop McClam and his family decided to open this funeral home, which the heart of the bishop was to ensure that every family who walks through the doors of the McClam funeral home was going to get service and love, regardless of their ability to pay. And just having that kind of heart in itself just speaks so much. As we all have probably experienced death in our families and needing to, deal with the undertakers and all of that, that's a very stressful time. But the love and the support that the bishop and his children have, and his family have brought to Dixville in the services that they provide is priceless. As I indicated, that the bishop's heart is to ensure that all all families receive the highest level of care and support. Unfortunately, the bishop passed away in October of 2016. But his business was just not a business to him. His business was his family. And his twins, we call them the boys, Daryl and Darnell, they continue to live out their father's legacy in his heart. They continue to provide that same concept of love and celebration of life, no matter what your abilities are to pay or not to pay. Again, during those times, funeral, when you're dealing with the loss of a loved one, it's very hard. And so when you have people there who are there to help you celebrate, because that is what it is. It's about a celebration of life. When you have people like that there by your side, it makes things a whole lot easier. I don't know if anyone's ever been to a funeral where McClam Funeral Home was the undertakers, but one thing about that funeral, you sad, but you walking away smiling, like you kind of don't understand, like I'm sad, but I'm smiling, because this family, they give you joy and they help you to remember all what your family was to you and what they continue to be for you. And that all comes from the bishop. One of the other things I just want to mention, that the legacy that I have to say the boys, Daryl and Darnell, just to be formal. One of the other things that they continue as a part of what their father always knew was right was employment. They employ people from the community. And as I said before, when you're dealing with, your loved ones passing away and things of that sort, it is so comforting to look around at the staff of people that's right from your community, right? Someone that that you can really lean on and know that they're going to take care of not only your loved one who passed away, but for you as a family. And so I love the fact, matter of fact, one of my neighbors here where I live, she works at McClam Funeral Home, and I didn't even know it until I went to her funeral and saw her. So I love the fact that not only do they walk the walk in regards of community and things of this that sort, but they show it. They show it through their actions. I just will leave with this: service, love, and community are the three words that I would use to describe Bishop McClam. The corner naming of the bishop will serve as our daily reminder of what is expected of all of us, because every last one of us on this board, in the community, our job is to service others. And that's what Bishop McClam has done. And I am so proud to be able to bring this request forward to ask that we name the corner of Dixon, Bristol after the bishop, because we, sometimes we all get to the left. We need that reminder, and seeing his name up on that pole by his business will be our daily reminder of what it is that we're expected to do. So I thank everyone for giving me the time to say a couple of things about the bishop, and I will just pass it on to Nakia. And I do also want to say, Nakia Dawson Douglas and her team has done a yeoman's job in sticking with this. Every time someone says, "Oh, I want to name a corner or something after someone," and the first thing we say, "Okay, you gotta get 270 signatures. Most of those have to be from here." All these different things, and as we all know, it's not easy to get 270 signatures. It's hard to get 20 signatures because everyone doesn't always see things the way that you see them. And Nakia and her team, they've worked. This is like a year and some change coming. Nakia done had a whole baby. She done got married, had a whole baby and everything. And she continued to work this whole process. And so I just want to publicly thank Nakia, her bereavement care, and everything that they've done. Of course, Daryl and Darnell, the boys, you know, I thank you guys every day for everything that you do for just not Dixville, but the entire city. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Morrison. Go ahead, Ms. Dawson Douglas.
First off, I would like to say thank you very much for allowing us to come to your meeting this evening. Alder
I'm
Morrison.
just going to interrupt just 1 second. Just state your full name and address for the record. Thank you.
Nakia Dawson Douglas, 84 Hallock Street, New Haven, Connecticut. Okay, so Alder Morrison, I would like to thank you because you said when I came to you almost a year ago, you stated to me that we will get this done, and you have stuck with us the whole time. You've said everything that I need to say about the bishop. When I started bereavement care in 2013, along with his two sons who were on the board, and one is actually my vice president, which is Daryl L. McClam at this time. That was one thing that Bishop did not. He did not give up on bereavement care, even though we cater to families of homicide. And at that time, they were, dealing with 80% of the homicides in the city of New Haven. He stood behind us and he told us that, how he started in 2000, how he started the funeral home, which was 16 years before he passed. So when he did pass away, it was a struggle. It was a struggle for me. It was a struggle for his children as well, but we all made it. Bereavement care actually pushed through, but I pushed through as the founder because of the words that I remember Bishop saying to me, never give up. So looking at the funeral home and looking at the twins along with their sister, Shaniqua, who's on the line as well, who came from Virginia to help out with the funeral home, I feel as though that, Bishop McClam is definitely a pillar of this community. He has been a bishop at his church prior to passing for 36 years. So that speaks measures in our community. Me being a community member, being a member of bereavement care, and also along with other organizations in the city, we hear his name a lot, even in his passing. So to still speak on someone who has passed away, that speaks measures. So I think that this signage would be perfect in that Dixwell community, because again, like Alder Morrison said, when you walk in that funeral home, you feel as though you're walking into, your family's living room. You don't feel as though you're about to make arrangements for someone that you didn't know was about to pass. So they definitely make you feel as though you're at home, feel as though you're a family member, but they started that because of their father, Bishop McClam. Thank you.
Thank you both for speaking on behalf of Bishop McClam. Obviously, he has made an impact on the community. And, these are one of my favorite items actually to hear on the board in our committee, because it is a celebration of life. And I appreciate
Absolutely
what you do for the families as well that are grieving. And I'm sorry for your loss and wish he were here to hear all of this. Are there any other speakers that would like to testify on behalf of this item?
Yes, I would. My name is Daryl L. McClam. My address is 64 Judwin Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut. I would like to talk about my father for a brief moment. It's been hundreds of families, probably thousands of families, that our family has served in this city. And it's been an honor the whole time. My father has instilled not only in us, but also at our church and this community, how we should stick together. And even when he passed in 2016, we made a promise to our father that we wouldn't let him down even in death. And this last year has been difficult for all of us, Madam Chair, and to all those who are on this Zoom tonight. It's been a difficult time during COVID season. And this last season, even in my father's death, we served 315 families just last year alone. And that speaks volumes from a business that started with literally nothing and to grow, to be able to become a pillar in this community. And naming this corner after my father, it will mean so much, not only to our family, but it'll mean a lot to this community. Because a lot of people in this community and a lot of our older people know the struggles that we had trying to keep this funeral home on Dixville Avenue. I really appreciate your time, and I want to thank Nakia Dawson Douglas for everything that she has done, our team that we have at Bereavement Care, and everything that we have done to try to get this done. We never stop, and I appreciate your time tonight and your consideration for this to be done. I really appreciate each and every one of you.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Is there anyone else in the group? I see
Yes, I would like to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Epps, right?
Yes, my name is Andre Epps, and I live at 482 Whaley Avenue. And I want to speak on behalf of Bishop McClam from a few different perspectives. First, he was a friend of my dad. He was a great friend of my dad. They're from the same hometown. They both worked at Winchester, and they were in the same organization, United Free Will Baptist Church. And he was my dad's friend. He was my dad's friend. And secondly, Bishop McClam was a mentor to myself. I went wayward years ago. I had a rough time as a teen into my early adulthood, and I did some things that I'm not proud of. And Bishop always stuck by my side. He always stuck by my side. He always encouraged me to strive for better, to do better. When he needed to use strong words, he didn't hold back. And I can tell you, just about every young man that came across his path, he treated you like a son. And if he saw you out of line, he would correct you. And that was real love. And he also rewarded you when you did good, when you said something good. And so I also know him to be a provider, because when I came home, after being incarcerated, I had a hard time with employment. And so even as the business struggled, he always made sure that there was a little room for me. And that helped me to provide for my family. And so now, years later, it's such a great way to honor him, but it's still not enough, because what this man has done for so many families in New Haven, and I know the Alderwoman covered it, but last year I had to bury my father. 6.5 months later, my sister. And when my sister passed, there was a small policy, but, Dale and Darnell gave my family the casket. And that's what their dad would do for so many families who didn't have money to bury their loved ones, to give them a proper service. It didn't matter what you came with. He always made a way. So, I hope and pray that he is honored in this way. We love him, and when I say we, I speak for the whole city of New Haven. Like, we love him. He's one of our heroes. He's a positive figure. He's a pillar. He's a rock. And we love him, and I would love to see him honored in this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Epps. It's nice to have mentors that embrace you, the whole you. So thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this from the group? I see other names. Ms. McClam? Anyone else?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
All right, my name is Shaniqua McClam. My address is 64 Judwin Avenue in New Haven, Connecticut. Thank you all so much, or Board of Aldermen. Thank you so much, Nakia Dawson, for this forum, just to be able to tell you a little bit about my dad. My dad was absolutely awesome. My father had a love for young people, and he would often take the time out to minister and to encourage young people. As a backdrop of this of this attribute of my father, I remember when I was getting my driver's license and I was a student of Wilbur Cross High School. And at that particular time in the 80s, our school, Wilbur Cross High School, did not offer a driver's ed class. So we all had to go to Hill House, which my father is in love with Hill House. So as he drops me off at this class, my dad walks me to the classroom and he notices that the teacher hasn't arrived yet. And there's a group, a room full of young people. So he decides to sit down at the desk where the teacher sits and starts talking to us. And of course, you know, being a teenager, when your dad's in front of all your peers and asking you crazy questions like, who in here is in love? And, you know, what is love? I mean, asking all these little, you know, I was embarrassed. But that was the heartbeat of my dad. He loved young people. He wanted to see them succeed. And he also wanted them to reach their highest potential. And because of this, my siblings, myself, we have done everything in our power to do exactly what he has taught us to do, and that is to serve our community, to serve the less fortunate, and to love people. My father loved people like none other. He always was a person not to judge them, but to meet everyone where they were and to love them where they were. My dad often said that everybody has a story, and it doesn't matter what the story is, that story is significant to them. And because that story is significant to them, then you must honor them. And I just think this, having a street named after my dad will be such an awesome memorial for him, as we so dearly miss him. Every time we get an opportunity to serve this community, it is a way of honoring his legacy. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to speak with you this evening.
Thank you. And thank you for giving us an even bigger picture of who your dad was. And, you know, teenagers need mentors like him. Just knowing that, you know, adults and teenagers, come on, we were all there. We were not, I have 3 of my own right now who, yeah, I could use your dad. Anyway, at this time, are there any other speakers in regard to this item? I think you all spoke, so I will open it up to my colleagues to ask questions, beginning with my vice chair, Alder DeCola. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Alder Antunes.
No questions. Thank you.
Alder Roth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions, but I just want to thank all the speakers for sharing the stories they shared.
Alder Winter.
No questions, but yes, powerful and loving testimony. Beautiful stories. Thank you.
Alder Singh. Question?
No question, but I want to congratulate the family that, you know, worked to put this together in memory of Mr. McLean. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Singh. I want to thank you again for sharing your stories with us this evening. We will be voting later on this item. You're welcome to stay on, or you can also Zoom out if you'd like. And once we vote, you will get a call if you're not on to hear it. But thank you for sharing these stories. That is what keeps the person alive and in our hearts. And bereavement is a difficult thing. By the way, I'm a Wilbur Cross mom. Go Wilbur Cross. I know my colleague, my Hill House colleague there is cheering on her Hill House, right, Alder Morrison? But I'm going to cheer my Wilbur Cross family. Anyway, again, thank you. Your dad sounded like an amazing human being that we need more of in our community. So thank you for all of your stories. And again, you're welcome to stay on board on this Zoom call, or if you wish to leave, you will get a call from our legislative office. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alder. Alder Morrison, I'm going to sign out. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you, McClam family, Nakia, everyone. Okay, have a great night.
Thank you, Alder Morrison. Good night. And at this time, we can move on to item number 2. And if we can have the folks on, is Helen Rosenberg and Eric O'Brien. Oh, I see them popping in. There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Get off the phone then. Okay.
I can hear you. We can hear you, Helen. So for whoever is going to testify first, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
I'll start. Helen Rosenberg, 212 Economic Development Office, or Office of Economic Development, 212 West Elm Street, New Haven. I am the one who is drafting, has drafted, or is drafting the application to go to the Department of Economic and Community Development to assist with environmental assessment at this site. So any questions about the grant can go to me, but Eric O'Brien from Urbane New Haven is here to speak about the project that will hopefully result from the research on the environmental condition.
Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Alders. So we have been in the process of working with the city.
Mr. O'Brien, Eric, do you mind name and address for the record? Thanks. Eric
O'Brien, 33 Blue Hills Road, North Haven. My office is at 470 James Street in New Haven. So I've been working with the city for, I guess, like 18 plus, almost 2 years now on this site on Humphrey Street. The city put out a request for proposals when they were selling off a bunch of underutilized lots that they had through LCI. We put in a proposal to purchase 154 to 158 Humphrey Street to build a six two-family row houses on the site. We have four of the 12 units designated affordable, 2 at 60% AMI, 2 at 80% AMI. We went through the whole RFP process. We won the proposal. We're down to the LDA right now. And one of the things that came up is that the property might be a Transfer Act site. So when we were aware of that, I reached out to the state first to see what kind of monies might be available. They directed me to kind of refer to the city, that the city can apply to a grant because they are the owners now. I reached out to the city. Helen stepped in and has been working with me on that. So she's kind of spearheading that so we can determine, what is the environmental impact of the site. And if you bear with me for 2 seconds. I just need to close my door because there's some noise outside. Sorry about that. So, yeah, so we love the idea of what we want to build there. It's been, it's been 2 years trying to get this thing built. We've had several meetings with the community. We've got a tremendous amount of neighborhood support, city support, and we just love to get the project undergoing. So this is step 2, I guess, in the process, or 3 or 4 or 5, but one more step on the way to getting this project built.
Okay, Helen, anything you want to add?
There hasn't been any investigation on the property. There's a 156 that's the one with the garage on it. It's a small site. It's about 5,000, a little over 5,000 square feet, and the major portion of that is this former garage, used car sales. I mean, I've been buying a million times. It's on the corner of Mill River Street and Humphrey Street. It's been vacant for at least a couple of years. City bought that property in 2018, and in 2002 it bought the sliver at 158 Humphrey Street, which I think has just been vacant the whole time. And the garage, nothing that we can find has been done as far as any environmental assessments of the site go. So they'll need a phase 1, which is looking at historical records and doing a site walkover. And then a phase 2 to see if there's actually anything on the site. There's probably a little something, but doesn't look like, just from walking around the site, that it would be anything major. And then if they do find something in the phase 2, then they go to the phase 3 environmental site assessment, and then determine how much is there and how to address it. So I'm asking for 75,000. It could be less, but I know it's not smart to ask for what you think it's going to be. It's good to ask for a little more. And that should cover all of that, and cover maybe some additional effort on the part of the environmental consultant that's selected to plan with the developer for the cleanup.
Okay, thank you for that. What are the steps for this? So this is just an assessment portion. Then if they find something, remediation needs to take place. Will we see you back for another grant, or will this also help cover that?
This is just for assessment. The DECD would not accept, because we don't know what the cleanup cost is going to be, so we wouldn't know what to ask for. The Lamont administration says that now they're going to have funding for assessment and cleanup every 6 months, available every 6 months. So I guess if they find something, there'll be another opportunity to apply for cleanup. Maybe cleanup won't be that expensive and can be rolled into whatever financing is, obtained for the construction. So we'll see. But the cleanup would be later, and it shouldn't be that significant.
Yeah, that'd be my guess would be the same. But part of the process of going through the DCD like this and assessing the property is the importance of then possibly and probably enrolling into the brownfield remediation program, so that it kind of limits liability to the footprint of the land. And that's the most important thing right now is, if the city, the city owns the property right now, being able to define it and get that, so there's no offsite issues, that come back to the city and, to us as the developers, if we go forward with this.
Okay, thank you for that. At this time, I'll open it up to my colleagues for questions. And before I do so, I want to recognize that Alder Smith is here this evening. Thank you, Alder Smith, for joining us. Also, I see our Transportation, Traffic and Parking Director, House Layden, that is on. Did you want to make any remarks on this, or are you just here for support?
Good evening, Madam Chair. 115 South Water Street, Doug House Layden. I was here in case of any support, but also to speak on the, if you had any question on the corner naming ceremony, but all good.
Oh, great. Thank you for being here. At this time, I will start with my Vice Chair, Alder DeCola, if you have any questions.
No questions at this time.
Alder Antunes, any questions?
I just wanted to clarify if that's the southwest corner or the northeast corner. I think there's two garages in that block.
Southwest.
Southwest. Okay. Thank you.
Alder Roth?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both for talking about this issue. I know we voted as a board on the LCI aspect of the project a little while back. It's an exciting project. I guess this wasn't originally in our package tonight, so forgive me for asking this. I don't think from when I first read the communication that there's a city match, but I just wanted to confirm that.
No match is required for state money.
Okay, great. Thank you. And that was my only question. Thank you.
Alder Winter, any question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you both for presenting. I think this is an exciting project, and I hope the environmental contamination isn't a big holdup. I noticed on the paperwork, it said that there's a maximum for these kinds of grants of $500,000. How do we arrive at the $75,000 figure?
Oh, just because I've been doing this for like 30 years, so I have a sense of how much the range of the cost for each phase. And you know, the site, it was mostly used for used car sales for a short period of time. I think it might have had a couple of gas pumps. It looks like it from walking around the site, and there was some car repair, but it was a while ago. And and it's a small site, so you won't have to drill a lot of holes to find out what's there. So I was able to estimate, and then I added a certain percentage in case there's some surprises.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Winter. Alder Singh, any questions?
No question, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Alder Smith, any questions? I'm sorry, I know you were unmuted, but we didn't hear you. I'm assuming no questions.
I'm sorry, no questions, Madam Chair.
Right. Okay, thank you. Anything else from, raise your hand, my colleagues, if you have any further discussion on this or further questions. Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for presenting this evening. We will be voting on this item, so you're welcome to stay on as we vote. Those were our 2 item agendas before the workshop. So I'm going to open it up to the public to see if anyone from the public would like to speak on any of these 2 items. Okay, I don't see any hands. For the second time, would anyone from the public like to speak on these 2 items? And for the third time, would anyone from the public like to speak on items 1 or 2 of the agenda this evening? Okay, seeing none, do I hear a motion to close the public portion?
So moved to close the public section.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Let's see. Do we want to vote on these 2 items so we can have everyone, let's vote on these 2 items. So would anyone like to move item 1?
I move item 1, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, item has been moved and seconded. Discussion on item 1 for the corner naming.
Madam Chair, I want to put a substitution in. It needs to say Bristol Street, not Francis Hunter. We need to correct that. So the substitution for our voting item should now read Bristol and Dixwell.
Okay, so it's Bristol and Dixwell. Okay, thank you for that substitution. Misty, did you get that? I'm going to say she got that. Any further discussion on this item? We'll vote on that amendment because we'll need to make that correction. But is there any other discussion on this item? Raise your hand if you do. Okay. Let's make the amendment. Let's vote on the amendment to change the corner from Francis Hunter Drive and Dixwell Avenue to Bristol Street and Dixwell Avenue. And right now we'll vote on that amendment. Everyone in favor of making that change, say aye, and I will call you by name. Vice Chair? Was that a yes? No? I think as it's muting, you're giving me your answer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Alder Antunes,
Yes.
Alder Roth,
Yes.
Alder Winter,
Yes.
Alder Singh,
Yes.
Alder Smith, and myself, I'm a yes. Okay, so the amendment has been made. And before we actually move to vote on this item, you know, these corner names, these corner dedications come to us. And I don't know about you all, but I think they are a great example for the community to look up to community leaders in a positive way. And hopefully if they don't recognize the name, they will Google it and get a better understanding of who that person is and live in their footsteps or try to emulate them. So I'm always happy to have these items on the agenda because it's a happy thing. It's a celebration of someone's life that meant a lot to a community. So
Madam
if there
Chair?
is no, yes.
Point of clarification that just in that amendment, we're not changing the location, we're just correcting the Scrivener's error.
Correct. Yes. Thank you, Alder. So at this point, we will vote on item number 1 as amended to reflect Bristol Street and Dixwell Avenue. And that's just, again, a Scrivener's error. So as myself, I am in support of this item. Vice Chair DeCola,
Yes.
Alder Antunes,
Yes.
Alder Roth,
Yes.
Alder Winter,
Yes.
Alder Singh,
Yes, I'm in support of this item.
Alder Smith.
Yes.
Any nays? Abstentions? The item carries with the yeas. Item passes.
I move item 2.
Second.
Item has been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No.
Alder Antunes?
Well, yes, I will then. This properties came up under our PAD meeting at one point, and we looked at it. It looked very good. So I would certainly support this continuing forward.
Yes, thank you, Alder Antunes. We did hear it in PAD, and it's a very promising project for an area that could use it. And it's right across the street from Jocelyn Park too, which is nice. So hopefully it will all be cleaned up and ready to go. Alder Winter, would you like to comment? Did I go out of order? I think I went out of order, but I have you, so go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely think we should approve. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we should approve the application for the funding, and hopefully the contamination on the site is minimal and doesn't hold up the project. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Alder Roth, forgive me, I didn't mean to skip over you. Do you have any comments?
No, I just echo thank you, Madam Chair. I echo what my colleague said. Thanks.
Alder Singh.
No comment, Madam Chair.
Alder Smith.
No comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, well, at this point, we will vote. All in favor of granting this funding to support the environmental assessment of the property on Humphrey Street, please say yay, starting with my Vice Chair DeCola.
Yes.
Alder Antunes.
Yes.
Alder Roth.
Yes.
Alder Winter.
Yes.
Alder Singh.
Yes.
Alder Smith.
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Any nays or abstentions? The yeas have it. The item passes. Okay, do I hear a
Thank you, Alders.
good luck with the project? I hope it works out for you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too. Good night. All right, at this point, we'll welcome our workshop presenters. You know, it's been a while since we heard from the Environmental Advisory Council. I've been wanting to have them on for a while. We had a very busy year actually in CSEP. We had a lot of items, and we finally found the time to schedule the council to our CSEP. So we look forward to hearing ideas. I think it's perfect timing. It's January. We have a whole year ahead of us. I see Laura Kahn, the chair of the Environmental Advisory Council here. So thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate it. And anyone else who will be part of the speaking portion, I will ask that everyone state their name and address for the record. And we'll start with the chair, Laura Kahn.
Hello, good evening. I'm Laura Kahn. I live at 54 Cleveland Road, and I thank you very much for inviting us here this evening. I'm joined by Kevin McCarthy and Kathy Fay. I think Kathy has to leave fairly soon, but I don't know if they have anything to say, but I suggest that we let them introduce themselves. Go ahead, Kevin. You're muted.
Good evening. My name is Kevin McCarthy. I'm Vice Chair, and I live at 171 Bradley.
Kathy?
Hi, I'm Kathy Fay. I am the secretary, and I live at 61 Springside. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave in a few minutes.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate you joining us tonight. So go ahead.
Okay, so I will get started by telling you that Kevin and Kathy are essential to our work. Kevin keeps us abreast of everything at the Connecticut General Assembly as a retired legislative aide to that body, and tells us all the legal ins and outs that we need to know to advocate for things at the state level. And Kathy is our general expert about energy and everything else in the city. She attends many meetings and knows a lot about all kinds of environmental things. So I will start by telling you that my motto for 2021 is use less, reuse more, and dispose of waste in the most environmentally friendly way possible. So I know that's a little long-winded, but you get the idea. During this pandemic, I have seen so many people try to put so many environmental travesties past us while we are not able to do anything about it. And I've noticed by staying at home all the time, much more about how many resources I and my family are actually using. And I'm sure all of you have noticed the same thing. So I'm just gonna give you, I sent Misty a whole raft of documents that we have been dealing with these past months. And I will give you a fairly quick rundown of issues we've been dealing with and issues we are going to deal with. And please stop me at any point if you have questions or comments or ideas or suggestions. Kevin wants us to help you in your work. So whatever we can do to help, we are going to. So I know you all know that an important thing we all did recently, and I have to tell you that Alder Sal DeCola was instrumental in this issue from years ago. He has been monitoring this for a very long time, but you know, the Wheeler Street Transfer Station owners, Murphy Road Recycling, applied for permission from DEEP and the city to expand their purview to accepting municipal household garbage from surrounding towns. And a huge effort on the part of the citizens, the alders, the city administration, and everyone. We all came to, and Save the Sound and some other organizations, environmental health and safety, all came together and advocated against this expansion. It was a huge undertaking. I myself, in addition to many strategy meetings, attended 3 parts of a city plan commission public hearing and 1 DEEP public hearing. And I know a lot of my pals did too. And it was very consuming. And I have shared with Misty, who may have shared with you, the letters the Environmental Advisory Council sent to DEEP and the City Plan Commission with a list of all the violations we at the Environmental Advisory Council have noticed ourselves. There are probably many more, but I personally had to undertake a traffic study and go and sit on Wheeler Street and count vehicles coming and going from that facility on many occasions. And Sal kept good track of trucks owned by that company using neighborhood roads when they weren't supposed to. And I mean, Chris Ozick, I don't know if you know, he solicited testimony in videos from people who live just adjoining the property, and you can see them on the New Haven Independent website. It is a remarkable testament. Now, I would ask that we all get together and keep watching this place. If you see violations, if you smell garbage, if you hear noise, if you see lights on at a weird time, and of course, why would you? But if you happen to, just jot it down and keep a record, because their permit is up for renewal in September. And we know that they are going to be asking for a renewal of their permit. See, Alder DeCola just missed my whole spiel about how amazing he's been about this whole thing. Did you just miss that, Sal? Yes, I just went through how you've been monitoring the Wheeler Street thing for years. So anyway, yeah, keep track of everything. We will keep going with our traffic studies and everything else. But, you know, people told us they smelled horrible odors. I filed an air quality complaint with DEEP, which only resulted in my getting a phone call from Jonathan Murray of Murphy Road Recycling, which I guess was a shakedown. I did not return his phone call, but anyway, it just makes me wonder. Chris Ozick said that we need to be protected from DEEP, and I agree with him. So we're all gonna have to take a big stand on this because it's not going to end. Anyway, if anybody has any questions about Wheeler Street, feel free to ask them now or in the future or anytime. Okay, so I'm going to go on. So sort of in conjunction with that, the Environmental Advisory Council and the Urban Design League requested that the city plan and zoning departments prepare a comprehensive coastline plan for all 32 miles of the coastline property in New Haven, because that would help us at least codify what we are supposed to be using waterfront property for, and maybe it would help us plan our future. I don't know if any of you took a tour of the Wheeler Street Transfer Station as I did and Kathy did and Kevin did and some others of us. and Sal, of course, I stood on the river front outside that property and looked at the beautiful Q Bridge and the skyline of New Haven lit up at night. And I thought, this is a travesty. We need to be doing something better with this property. And I know it needs to be, the toxic waste needs to be cleaned up, but if we don't make a plan, that will never happen. And yes, it is going to take decades, but at some point it would be lovely to have a river walk or something. I mean, I can imagine people would love to live in a building overlooking the Q Bridge in the city from the other side of the river. That would be amazing. And what's going to happen in some number of years is that those tanks that store oil are going to become obsolete because we are using less and less of that stuff. So we need to plan for New Haven's being able to capitalize on our wealth and our resources. And that is what we need to aim for. So anyway, and so we also have been monitoring Safety Clean Systems, which is a business that recycles oil, car oil, and they applied to DEEP to recycle antifreeze. So what they do is collect it at their site, which is under the bridge. It's near Wheeler Street Transfer Station, but it's under a bridge and there's nothing anyone else could do with it. And we have been supporting them in their work and their efforts. They just applied to DEEP recently to expand to take antifreeze in and recycle it. So they're a very viable company. At some point, we hope they're going to put themselves out of business by getting us not to use all these toxic things, but that's good. And in the meantime, they're doing a good job and we appreciate that. And just so you know, I asked them how many barge trips they do per year, and they said 4. Now, Wheeler Street would have to do several barge trips a week if they wanted to take garbage out of New Haven, which I'm sure they would like to. And I asked how many train switches they have per week, and they said 3. So that's 4 barges a year and 3 train switches a week. And you can imagine how many more resources it would take to get garbage out of that neighborhood on barges or rails. Just keep that in mind for future reference. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about those things. We're advocating against single stream recycling, which doesn't work. Right before the pandemic, Cheryl Baldwin, who's a New Haven resident, and the DEEP waste management specialist started a series of Trash Talk Tuesdays when she was teaching how to properly dispose of things. This goes back to my motto for the year: use less, reuse more, dispose of everything in the most environmentally friendly way possible. So Cheryl put these things on YouTube, but I don't think anybody's watching them. But we need to be much more cognizant about how much waste we have and what happens to it. And single stream recycling basically destroys anything of value that's in the recycling stream. Cardboard gets wet, it gets full of glass shards. And right now there's a shortage of cardboard because people are having so many packages delivered. New York State is advocating they have a proposed bill to make manufacturers pay for the recycling costs of packaging. And I don't think it would be a bad idea for Connecticut to take that into consideration. I'm not sure as a city we could do that, but we can certainly think about things like that. Anyway, I don't know. If anyone has any ideas, please try them. I do have one suggestion. After going and looking in my neighbor's recycling bins and seeing that they just dump their cardboard boxes without taking the tape off or without taking the styrofoam out, that we need to educate people. So I did think that maybe we could get Anna and Abby's kids to stand on the steps of City Hall once a week and show us an example of one thing that we could do right every week. They could do one thing and show everybody how to recycle it properly. And, you know, we could do that with clothing. We could do it with shoes. We could do it with so many things. Just a thought. Anyway, I will, yes. Go ahead, Alder Roth.
No, thank you for that. I mean, do we have any sense what percentage of what is being put in recycling bins is actually getting recycled? Or is it so contaminated that it's not getting recycled? Or is there perhaps not a market for the recycled products as well?
I can take that.
Good.
So I will give my one-size-fits-all legislative answer. It depends. For metals, the recycling rate is very high, particularly for aluminum. So if you're throwing, you know, soda cans, beer cans in your recycling, those are going to get recycled. For paper and plastics, what happened was the Chinese, who historically have been the major market for those goods, were really fed up with all the garbage that was being sent along with the recyclables and have basically said, we're not interested in that junk. And so a lot of that, in fact, is no longer being recycled. And you also have a wide variety of plastics. You know, one of the problems is people are throwing plastic bags in the recycling, and that gunks up the recycling equipment. We also obviously are seeing more aseptic packaging, like juice boxes. And from a recycling perspective, those are really awful. So it really does depend on what material you're talking about as to what recycling rate is.
But I do know that only 10% of plastic has ever been recycled. So imagine that, 10%. And I know everybody's not going to do this, but you can do things like take your corrugated cardboard boxes to the city waste transfer station, and then they won't get full of shards of glass or wet. And anyway, we have to do something. So I don't know what it's been like during the pandemic. I also had a thought that perhaps if we made Amazon pick the boxes that it delivered up, because they're coming back to deliver more boxes. I don't know if we could do that, but hey, it's a thought.
You
I
read
got
my
lots
mind.
of ideas. I'm sorry,
You
what?
read my mind. I was just going to say, can Amazon or any of these delivery services pick up the boxes that, you know, they're about to drop off boxes?
Yes.
Pick up the empty ones. So maybe that's something that, you know, so give it some thought to write a letter to support that.
Yes. Okay.
We'll
Great.
write Jeff Bezos' successor.
Good idea. Yes. Okay, so I will go on. Let's see. We also need to, well, we're advocating for composting, especially. So if you take your food scraps, non-meat and non-dairy, even just fruit and vegetable scraps, and bury them somewhere in your backyard or have them picked up by Peels on Wheels, that helps because it gets wet waste out of the garbage stream. And, I think Celeste Suggs is with us. She's the head of the New Haven Garden Club. She's here tonight. She made a big push for mulching leaves and using them in our gardens instead of sending them out in leaf bags. So for those of us who can do that, that's really good too. I have a lot of leaves at my house, and it's when I leave them without chopping them up, they blow onto the neighbors' properties, and I don't want to make any enemies of my neighbors trying to save the planet. So anyway, but I know New Haven picks the leaves up and mulches them. I've seen the big bags of leaves across from the Barnard School being mulched. So it's good. We're working on things but a lot more composting would be great. If we could eventually get city compost pickup, that would be good. We discussed it with Murphy Road Recycling to see if they would do a pilot, and they said they did one in Milford and it was too expensive. So, okay. anyway, we will go on. So as you know, the Environmental Advisory Council, we are big advocates against the use of pesticides. And at our meeting next month, March the 3rd, we are going to have Margaret Harvey. She's an epidemiologist at the Connecticut Department of Public Health with us to discuss pesticides and all the toxicity. We're following several bills in the Connecticut General Assembly concerning pesticides. One is calls for digitizing of pesticide application records. One is a ban on chlorpyrifos, which is a pesticide that's used a lot on golf courses. And I think there was one to ban pesticides that the World Health Organization lists as cancer causing. I don't know if any of you know the latest, but Monsanto, which was bought by Bayer, is at the very end of a $10 billion settlement class litigation concerning Roundup. And they're going to pay out all this money, but as I heard on NPR this morning, and as I know, it's not going to get glyphosate-based herbicides out of stores. They are still selling the stuff, and they're still claiming it's safe. So we have a big problem, and I do not know about your neighborhoods, but in my neighborhood during this pandemic, we have had a lot of people spraying herbicides all over their lawns, and they don't make your grass grow. They just kill everything, bugs, birds, you name it. And we've been having no place to go to exercise but walk around. And every time I walked outside, I smelled poisoned air, and I saw those little yellow pesticide application flags. I think I wrote down 40 or 50, I documented 40 or 50 instances of pesticide applications, and I am still compiling the list and getting the names of all the pesticides they use, but True Green and TLC, the lawn company, were the biggest sprayers, and they sprayed during high winds. They sprayed at times they weren't supposed to, and I asked Deep to look into these things. I've never heard back from them. So I know each instance of pesticide application that Deep has to investigate involves a big report, and it was hard for them to do during the pandemic, but it is now many months later. It's almost a year later. And anyway, I'm still working on that. I'm thinking that the Environmental Advisory Council should file a complaint with the Attorney General for jeopardizing public health, but we will take that up with Margaret Harvey next month and see what she thinks, because unfortunately there are no laws against these things. So we're working on it. And I'm hoping that the State Department of Public Health will help us educate everybody about all this stuff and how bad these pesticides are. And anyway, so that's what I will say about that, I think. We have a group that's advocating against leaf blowers. I don't know if you know about this. We're getting a bigger and bigger group. I know Alder Roth had a complaint from, at least one complaint, and an inquiry from a group in her neighborhood who took this on. And we had an ER doctor at Yale who lives in my neighborhood who she put together a leaf blower presentation for us, and I sent it to Misty. I don't know if she shared it with you, but the facts are kind of frightening. And among other things leaf blowers do is they spread pesticides and animal feces around. So yeah, as well as making much too much noise and not doing anything you couldn't do with a rake. So anyway, we will get back to you with hopefully a resolution to do something to limit leaf blower use. Let's see, we have another group that is advocating against bird strikes on buildings in the city, and they're working with city planning and zoning. City planning and zoning are working on an ordinance amendment to make sure that we don't build any more buildings that encourage bird strikes, because Yale and some other people who built huge buildings in New Haven have built them with huge plate glass windows, and that is detrimental to birds. So people are working on that. You'll be hearing about the leaf blower stuff and the bird strike stuff. So this is your head start. And I think I sent you some facts about the bird strikes. I'm sorry to be burdening you with all of this stuff. It's more and more reading and writing and stuff, but hey, it'll be worth it in the end. Let's see, what else have we got? Well, we're big advocates against artificial turf, which, as you know, is 4 layers of plastic. And one of the layers is styrofoam. They require pesticides and detergents to keep them up. And they all end up in landfills, all these layers of plastic, especially the needled carpets that they just roll up and change. And Yale has at least 6 of these plastic fields plus practice fields, and they're just sitting here deteriorating during this pandemic. And during the summer, I saw plants growing up over a brand new softball plastic field they had installed last summer. And I'm pretty sure they sprayed pesticides on it to get rid of those plants, because I saw dead plants after a while. So it's kind of tragic. Anyway, we're working on that. We're working to make sure that as few kids as possible get exposed to the toxins in this plastic, which off gases and hurts them because it's not nearly as soft as landing on soil. That's why there are so many ACL injuries and other problems. Let's see, what else have we got? Oh, so over the past year, the Governor's Council on Climate Change met many times and had many work groups to come up with recommendations to the governor for environmentally good things to do. So a lot of us went to a lot of meetings and worked on a lot of recommendations, and a lot of things came out of it. And if you want, I think I sent Misty the link. You can get onto the DEEP website and look at the near-term actions report, which just got released a few weeks ago. I know this is a lot. I realize that. Let's see, what else have we got here?
You've been busy.
Yes, we have. And the state water quality to Congress was due. So some of us worked on that during the summer, and we made comments and we just read through the state water quality report. It's fascinating reading if you're interested in stuff like that. And, you know, the Environmental Advisory Council has a water expert, Iris Kaminsky, who she serves on the drought committee of the Water Planning Council. And she keeps us up to date about all the water things, which we care a lot about, because if you don't have drinking water, you can't survive. And one thing we care about is people abusing the water by using too much of it, watering at the wrong times of day, using too much water, watering incorrectly, and watering after they spray pesticides, because then the pesticides run off into the storm drains and it goes into the river and into Long Island Sound, and that is not good. So anyway, things you should be aware of. The week before last and last week was the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters Environmental Summit. And if you want to, you can get online and look at all the briefing papers and actually see the presentations. It was basically the same as last year, but okay, good. We're glad they care about that. There's also at the moment a Mill River Watershed Urban Waters Initiative, which is supposed to bring some money for things like citizen science and education to environmental justice neighborhoods like Fairhaven that are on the waterfront. So Kathy Fay has been attending their meetings, and I've gone to a couple, and we're monitoring the situation to make sure that DEEP does allocate the money the way it's supposed to in grants to the neighborhoods that are actual environmental justice neighborhoods to clean up whatever needs cleaning up on the Mill River. So let's see, I'm almost at the end. I know it seems like a lot. Oh, and also on the water is English Station. So we're monitoring the progress on the remediation of English Station. I and a couple of other people went to Hartford a year ago, December, and met with the Attorney General's office to ask them to try and intervene with us because we got sick of going to those meetings with UI where they told us nothing and the people from DEEP just sat there, and the Attorney General's office said, well, you have to go to DEEP and talk to them. We can't do anything for you. We're DEEP's lawyers. So we have been waiting for a very long time for an update, and Steve Fontana at the city government has been trying to get the Environmental Advisory Council a current update from UI for a very long time. And hopefully, he said they're waiting for some sign-offs at UI and they should get it to us by our next meeting. And if they don't, we're going to approach Pura and ask why this is not being, the process is not progressing. So, because we need this remediation to be done. We don't want the neighbors to have to suffer with this contaminated site. We want to use it for something else or at least clean it up. And Ball Island floods at high tide, and then whatever toxic stuff is there mixes with the water in the river. So anyway, I don't want to scare anybody, but we do need to get that cleaned up. Let's see. And I don't know if you know, but the New Haven Oyster Farm has a beautiful plan for expansion, and they put it on hold during the pandemic, but we're going to advocate for that when they bring it. It's a great idea. They're going to have a museum and they're going to farm more oysters, and it's just fantastic. We love good economic development stuff. We hope you'll join us with that. I know you will. We're monitoring drinking or municipal water and wastewater concerns. A while ago, we hosted some staff from the Regional Water Authority to answer questions because we need to learn everything we can about water. And last night we hosted Gary Zralek of the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority. And I forwarded you some information each of those entities gave us about pesticide testing, because we just want to know that they're keeping track of the pesticides and things like that. We want to make sure there are no pesticides in our drinking water, and we want to make sure that there are very few pesticides going to our wastewater treatment plant, because we don't want pesticides to have to be treated. Anyway, you can imagine how much pesticide it would take to make a drop in the drinking water supply. But the fact that they find traces amounts of things like glyphosate in there worries me a lot. Let's see. We are also monitoring a situation with some houses in Upper Westville that are sinking. They have wet basements and cracking foundations. We think it's caused by 20 years worth of municipal drinking water that Yale used on its golf course. And on Friday, well, a few weeks ago, DEEP and Capital for Change brought a backhoe and took some water and soil test samples. And they just, I know they went to several houses, but in one, they put the backhoe in and there was water in the yard immediately. So that's a little worrisome. And Capital for Change held a meeting about the results of those soil and water tests on Friday, and the Environmental Advisory Council has asked if we could see the results of the tests. We're waiting anyway. So, and last on my list is that Alder Winter and some other alders and the New Haven Climate Movement they drafted a resolution concerning electrification of city buildings and vehicles. And we promise everybody on the Environmental Advisory Council will read your resolution and we'll let you know if we have any comments. And I think that's it. I'm sorry, I hope I didn't take too long.
No, that was a great review of what you've been working on and what we need to be thinking about as well. We do have all the documents that you sent over, so we have some leisurely reading to do. And of course, if there is any way that we are able to assist you, please don't hesitate to call on us. That's what we are here for. A lot to absorb here, a lot going on. I think what the pandemic did was bring awareness of our environment, and just by not driving, by not you know, we saw the ozone layer shrink and actually close. So, you know, there are positives that we were able to witness during the pandemic. So I thank you very much for your help with everything that you're doing. You will be invited back with updates. I will keep you posted on that. I do see Kevin McCarthy's hand is up. Kevin, the floor is yours.
So I spent half my life staffing public meetings and hearings, so I will be brief. You were talking about you helping us. I think it's also of mutual interest to discover ways that we can collaborate and help you folks, and also Misty. And this is something I have a real interest in as someone who staffed the Environment Committee and other committees of the legislature for many years. Picking up on one point that Laura made about Wheeler Street, one of the things that was apparent going through that process is there's nothing in the zoning ordinance about environmental justice. And I don't know if there's anything in city law generally. And I actually was at the table when the state's environmental justice law was written. And that's something of interest to me. I think that may be a potential area of collaboration, because clearly that was a major factor in the decision on Wheeler Street. And there are other issues coming before your committee and other committees of the Board of Alders that I think are relevant to that issue. And certainly if there's any way I can help out, I'd be happy to do that.
Of course you are. We will call on you, Kevin, and we appreciate your offer. You've made the offer numerous times, and it is greatly appreciated. So thank you for that. Are there any questions from my colleagues? I'll begin with my Vice Chair, Alder DeCola. Do you have any questions, comments, suggestions, whatever you have?
No, Laura knows what she has to do. She does a good job at it.
Thank you. Sal tells me and I do it.
Be careful. The list might keep growing. Alder Antunes, do you have any questions, suggestions, what have you?
I don't have any questions, but the suggestion, maybe you can get to our water company. The water that they send us in our system is absolutely filthy. I've had a whole water filter system in my house, and in 15 minutes, the filters look like they've been in there for a week. So they keep telling us there's nothing wrong, and I can't imagine more people not getting sick from it.
So perhaps Tom Barger, the water quality manager at RWA, could help you with that. He's very kind and I'm sure would be willing to find a way that you could have better water.
Thank you. I did. I put a whole house water filter system, so I don't drink that stuff.
Okay.
Alder Roth.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to Laura and Kevin and Celeste and everyone who's involved with your organization. You're doing a ton at all levels of government. Kevin, I do have one question for you. So you're saying there is a state environmental justice zoning law, but you're saying it's not strong enough, and so your recommendation is for the city to consider?
So the state law really deals with the regulatory agencies, most notably DEEP, and it deals with facilities that are polluting, basically, power plants, certain trash plants. It really doesn't deal with zoning. Zoning is local. Mm-hmm. And the thing that came up with the Wheeler Street proposal was that they needed zoning permission to expand their operations. And while there's some sort of general welfare provisions in the zoning ordinance, there really is nothing that deals with environmental justice. And that's, obviously the zoning ordinance is very much outdated, and environmental justice has really come to the fore only in the last 10 or 20 years. But I think that may be an opportunity for us to collaborate.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that.
Alder Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that's a really interesting idea to see how you could alter the zoning code to address environmental justice issues. So I'd be glad to be part of any group that's put together to work on that. There was a lot of really interesting discussion of the waste stream this evening. And I know for the last few years, there have been bills to increase the bottle deposit. And just wanted to know, is that coming up again this session, do you know? And if so, should we be advocating to our delegation? And yeah, if there's anything, it seems to me like a great idea, but is there anything that we should be concerned about with that proposal?
So there's a lobby group that focuses primarily on the bottle bill. I think the primary focus is expanding the products that are subject to redemption. And then more generally, there's this concept called extended producer responsibility, which is very common in Europe. It's very uncommon here, where you extend the responsibility of the producer to take care of the product at its end of life. And there's been some progress on that in other fields. We've got that with mattresses, we've got that with paint. But I think the fees for the bottle bill have been largely unchanged for decades. And a nickel once upon a time was actually worth something, and now it's not. So I can give you information about that lobbying group and see where they are. I'm certain that there are bills before the Environment Committee to do work in that area.
We'll monitor it, and if we find that the bottle bill goes anywhere this session, we'll let you know. Unfortunately, we heard that the Connecticut General Assembly is going to be considering fewer bills this year. So that's a problem. But yes, there is a group working on the bottle bill, and Kevin keeps us very informed as to the progress of these bills. And I know in the last session, State Rep Pat Dillon was working on a New England consortium bill to mandate a minimum content of recycled glass in liquor bottles. So if that were to come to pass, that would be good. Unfortunately, the pandemic has given everyone an excuse to stop environmentally sound practices.
The other question I had was about the huge power plant, the Killingley gas plant that proposed, and whether the city, whether there's anything we in New Haven should be doing to tell the state and the governor, don't build this giant fracked gas plant.
So I've been following that from a distance. It's gotten most of its regulatory approvals. I believe the Deciding Council in particular has approved it. Part of this is actually a regional issue in the sense that under state law, there's sort of a presumption that power plants get approved if there's a regional need for the power. The determination as to whether there's a regional need for the power is not something the state really has much say over. It's largely the result of the independent system operator in New England, which is the entity that runs the regional grid. And we've got this strange situation where folks in Connecticut, including folks at DEEP, really question whether there's a need for the power plant. But the way the regulatory process is set up, it's sort of biased in favor of building it. And again, there are environmental groups that have been trying to kill Killingley, so far without success. I don't think it's something we've spent really any time on as a council, but certainly people can try to lobby the state regulators and potentially the governor to try to take a more sensible approach to power plant planning.
Thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, and thank you. Alder Singh.
No question. I just want to commend the group on the work they're doing and, to continue in this path because we need to be environmentally minded and what goes on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alder Smith. Okay. Well, again, I appreciate you giving us a rundown of what you're working on and waiting on, and we will invite you back at some point in this year to get an update. And again, Kevin, we appreciate your offers. And Laura, all of everything that you do is greatly appreciated. So thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you, colleagues, for staying on for the workshop.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Do I?
A motion to adjourn?
Second?
Okay. The motion has been made and seconded. All in agreement for adjournment, say aye. Alder DeCole.
Aye.
I believe Alder Antunes had to go. Alder Roth.
Yes.
Alder Winter.
Aye.
Alder Singh.
Aye.
And Alder Smith. And I as well. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Stay safe. Ciao.
Bye. Thank you.